welcome back to the channel. Well, it's almost been a year to the day that I uploaded my 3,000 round count video for the M92 PAP SBR. Since then, in that year, I know I've put at least another 3,000 rounds through it. Probably just a little bit more, but I know it's at least 3,000. So we'll call this one the 6,000 round count. Do some shooting here today, and then we'll take it back to the house and take a look at what the internals look like after a little over 6,000 rounds through it. As you know, if you're familiar with these, started life as a pistol per ATF regulations. It did not have the stock on it, did not have this folding mechanism. I did the Form 1 where I could legally add the stock and all that good stuff. It's 922R compliant, all that jazz. So we're rocking and rolling now. Over 6,000 rounds. Never really had many issues with it, if any. If I have had any issues, it's been magazine or ammo related. I mostly run Wolf. In the early days I was running some Tula through it, and I had one or two hiccups with the Tula ammo. Not only in this gun, but in the VZ58 that I had, or VZ2008. So, in the year, I've made a few upgrades and changes to it. Got the Cabra Customs cheese grater, surplus grip, and Cabra Customs peep sight. Still a sweet shooting gun. The action, while not as smooth as my Rifle Dynamics AK, it has worked in quite nicely. And probably the best upgrade I made to this is that ALG AKT trigger. It's the AKT enhanced. Great trigger. So smooth. Let's put a few rounds through it. And before we do that though, I haven't cleaned this in a while. I've just been kind of running it, see how it does. Usually about every 750 rounds or so I'll clean it, but it's been working. And as you can see there, it still runs like a champ, as one would expect from a decently built AK. It's not an American-made AK. This one was made 100% in Zastava factory. Alright, so I'm back from the range. Got the M92 PAP here. I have not cleaned it. We're going to put it on the table here, take it apart, and just see what it looks like. See how everything's holding up. See if we got any deformation, any cracks, anything like that. I'll show it all on video here. And I may sprinkle a few pictures in here and there if I can't get any proper close-up on the video. So let's take a look at that. Okay, first things first, of course, the gun is safe. And if you're familiar with these, you'll know that it has a hinged dust cover, so no dust cover to actually take off. Recoil spring comes out. It looks just fine. Just as you would expect, just a little dirty. Bolt carrier group comes out, just a little dirty. We'll lay that to the side here. Now as for the internals, of course you're going to get your usual shiny spots here on the rail just from the action of the gun working and everything. But down here in this area, everything seems to be looking pretty good. I've not seen any deformation, anything of that nature. So just looking here on the front trunnion, I'm not seeing any deformation at all, really. Everything still looks in really good shape. Now, one thing that's different in this video as opposed to the 3,000 round count video I did, I have put in the ALG trigger in here. And if it will show up on video here, the hammer if you can see the line, if you're familiar with AKs, that line there where the bolt carrier rides across, on a perfectly built AK like my Rifle Dynamics, that line is directly in the center of the hammer. This one is not. It is slightly off to the left from my angle, or from my point of view, but it works. The safety, I've loosened it up a little bit, kind of worked it in there. It looks and works just fine as well. Everything else I can see on the gun here looks pretty good. Let's take the gas tube off. And as far as the gas block here, I'm seeing just a tiny bit of just the slightest surface rust. I'll roll in a picture here to see that better. Everything else looks pretty good. Trunnion looks just fine. Gas tube itself, got the usual carbon buildup inside, but it looks just fine as well. So onto the bolt carrier. Wipe it down just a bit. I never concerned myself too much with this end of it, because the first magazine or less you put through it again anyway, once it's cleaned, it's going to look just like that again. But I just kind of like to wipe it off to see how it's looking. No deformation on it really, just some carbon buildup, which is to be expected. Now I probably will clean it out of these grooves here, just for posterity and OCD's sake. And one area a lot of people like to look, back here on this little tail piece here, we're getting just the slightest bit of deformation right there. Nothing too much to worry about in my opinion. After 6,000 rounds, if that's all I've got, I'm a happy camper. Everything's still looking good on this side. And onto the bolt itself. Let's take a look at it. Everything there's looking pretty well. Let's see, just a tiny bit of deformation here. Again, nothing that I would be terribly worried about. Not a huge deal in my opinion, but I'm not an expert by any means. But if that's all the deformation I've got after 6,000 rounds, I'm a pretty happy camper with that as well. Yeah, nothing on the back there. That's looking good. So for having put 6,000 rounds, a little more than 6,000 through this rifle, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it's not a top tier AK by any means, but for what I paid for this, $449, got 5 mags with it, I am one happy camper. I know I've said that quite a bit. Well, one last thing here, the stock and hinge mechanism. The stock is Manticore Arms, the hinge is Stormworks. This pin that it pivots on, after about 1 or 2 magazines, it starts to ride up. And I couldn't tell you how many times when I'm shooting it, I'll get a pin right in the nostril there. So, I'll come up with a fix for that. I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of taking the time to do it. If you're in the market for an AK pistol, or an AK to make into an SBR, I would highly recommend the M92 PAP. It's been good to me, and I would venture to guess that it would be good to you as well. Somebody just sent me a text. Thanks for watching.